Yes, my background started with astronomy, mapping the galaxy in radio and infrared, and then went into space engineering. And I worked on the space station design for NASA for 8 years. Let's see, is this working? No, it's not. Okay. So one project I was involved in recently is with some artists in New Zealand, is a project to visualize and sonify the data for space debris. So this is some of in the background in this picture, some of the parameters I provided and some of the trajectories we calculated. Let me back this away. And so Radek created a sonification of the data and the visualization, and so this is a little 40-second clip of it. So the objects in orbit near that were overhead in Wellington, New Zealand, are illustrated, and then Radek made translated the motions into audio representation that with a bank of speakers around, so you could hear different objects moving through the space. But this was only a small sample of 10 objects out of the 43,000 that are up there that we're tracking. So, but one other, I wanted to talk about a couple other aspects of art and space, and one aspect is the important role in the early parts of space engineering design. For example, this is the early conceptual design for the landing on the moon with John Houbolt designing this path of rendezvous in lunar orbit, and the concept for the lunar lander was started as this little wooden model. So there was just early conceptual art was determining the entire future of the program, and even though people are always think of the fancy engineering that goes into spacecraft design, it really starts from the very earliest concepts. I worked on the conceptual design for the space station, and this is some of the 5 redesigns I worked on, and then also this plan for how a space station could help return to the moon, building a lunar orbiter facility. And I don't know if you can see, down this little tiny porch down here, it was actually a consequence of my manager needing to provide the White House with a lower keeled version of the space station design in the last minute, and unfortunately my manager couldn't operate the photocopy machine well enough and was trying to cover up these things and managed to get a little slip of the part of the design sticking down there, and for a couple of years we always included it in the detailed design. And I just had this picture of these astronauts risking their lives to build this part, and wondering if it all traced back to a photocopy error. So you can see how little bits of the artwork can actually influence the future quite a bit. This is a piece that I worked on, was the early concepts for the tunnel to connect the US and the Russian parts. So I always feel a little ownership about these little tunnels. That's why I like to see them in the movie Gravity and things like that. So there's my little tunnel, oh boy. So there it is, sticking out on the front of the station. This is the station as it looks like now. We also had a failure of imagination. It's almost like you imagine an art gallery and you just think of an empty space and you forget the fact that people are going to bring artwork into the art gallery. So all the experiments have been going on for 20 years on the space station have really added up to a tangled mess. So I wanted to, continuing on the theme of how the artwork influences space activities, I would say that this one painting really determined the US space program for the next 60 years. It has a space station, and a space shuttle, and a space telescope, and this early design and early painting from Brown made in 1952 in Collier magazine. All of the $350 billion worth of programs followed from just this one concept. And so, that's why I think it's very interesting to look at the concepts that are out there right now, because people grow up with these and stay inspired. This is some of the space settlement paintings from the 1970s and 80s. And for example, if you listen to Jeff Bezos about why he's spending $1 billion a year on building rockets, he's really inspired by this painting. So if you want to understand where he's going and what all the activity that Blue Origin is doing. This is a painting from interior of a lunar base where the reduced gravity means that you can actually fly, and you don't need stairs between floors because you can jump from one floor to another. And so, but this is one of the few cases illustrations of what a city on the moon might look like. I think there may be 3 or 4, and so it's the concepts that people have can actually really change the future, I think. And if that's one area that if you wanted to be involved in this movement of humanity into space, or if you shared that vision, if you want to come up with the concepts and designs of the interiors, you can change things like that. And this is Elon Musk's vision of Mars. There's people on Mars that he has organized his entire company about. That vehicle that on the left there, that the spaceship that can carry 100 people to Mars, they plan to be test hopping it next year. But I never trust his schedules, but anyway, but still, it's amazing that they're actually building the parts of this right now. And people, are using things like, this is a visualization of a space hotel, and I would say that this company's only asset really is this painting. I mean, and so they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars to build this hotel based on this painting. And so it's the space art and visualization is absolutely critical to whether or not these projects happen. And so one of my favorite areas is asteroids, and I think are desperately in need of better visualization and imagery concerning asteroids. This is one that actually shows the asteroids in their true brightness. So if you see that giant dark Matilda asteroid, that really is that dark. And so there's, in fact, the comets when they're not emitting gases are really dark objects too. But I'm just going to look at this one near-Earth asteroid, Tutatis, and this is my vision of next year bringing it to the festival to make a big splash in the art world. But the potential is to imagine what you can do with this raw material, and right now this is one of the few images of transforming one of these giant rocks into a habitat for people. But we're right at the stage in the next 5 years or so where these visions will transform what happens in the future in the solar system. And so this is just I just end with a note that I used to be interested in this when we knew about 12 Earth-crossing asteroids, but now we know about 18,363, of which 50 were discovered this week. So there's a lot of raw material out there for future art in space. But thank you.